If you've ever struggled to understand the concept of layering with colored pencils, you might want to give me just a few minutes of your time, because this will be your ultimate guide to clear all your doubts and confusion. Welcome back, friends. Today we are going to be going through layering with colored pencils, and I'll be demonstrating the process using this cherry drawing I did a few days ago. If you are new here, I'm Kojo, and here I teach you all you need to know about colored pencil art. Let's get right into it. So I think it's only appropriate to start off with a definition for layering, and this is the simplest one I came up with. Layering is simply shading colors one on top of the other in order to create depth and realism. In other words, layering is what transforms your drawing from looking flat to looking a lot more realistic. Let's consider the reference image for this drawing. If you look closely, you can tell there are different shades of colors here, even though the main or primary color is red. During layering, all we are trying to do is replicate these different shades of colors. So how do we start? Well, we start by identifying the base layer, and that's exactly what you see me do here. I've identified the base layer and I'm shading it in. The base layer is the lightest color you can isolate from the reference. In this case, it is pink. For the method I use, white is not considered a base layer. So if you identify white in your reference, ignore it and move on to the next lightest color. This is because we usually draw on white paper, so it wouldn't really make sense to shade in white as our base layer. The base layer is applied evenly in a flat manner. After all, as the name suggests, it is the base. All other colors will sit on top of the base layer. During the layering process, be sure not to press too hard on the pencil. The entire process should be done in very light layers, while ensuring that you move in circular patterns to avoid having any obvious start or stop areas. Remember to keep your pencils sharp at all times in order to get into the tooth of the paper more easily. Also, always ensure you've layered enough pigment before moving on to the next color. One of the main reasons we are layering is to cover the white or grain of the paper, so we need to make sure we have fewer white spaces between the pencil strokes. After shading in the base layer, we then identify the other colors and shade them in progressively until we get to the darkest color. Just like you can see me demonstrate here, going over the pink base with poppy red. That means we are shading from light to dark, with each shade of color being darker than the previous one until we get to the darkest color. So all through the process, pay close attention to the reference in order to know where to shade which color. As for the base layer, it is applied evenly across the entire section being shaded. In this shot, you can see I'm layering dark brown, which is darker than the previous color, which was red. Also, take note that the base layer may vary depending on what you are drawing. If you are working on a drawing with different sections having different shades of colors, then your base layer will vary. However, for this drawing, I used just one color, which was pink, because there wasn't so much variations in color. The next thing is to merge all these layers together through a process called blending. So there are primarily two ways of blending, which is burnishing and then application of solvent. For this drawing, I'll be blending by using the solvent. I've got another video where I explain the different methods of blending, so you might want to check that out later. So for this method, I dip the tip of a paintbrush or Q-tip into the solvent and apply it gently in circular patterns to the drawing. A good tip when using this method is to blend the lighter areas before moving on to the darker areas. This will prevent you from accidentally mixing up the darker colors with the lighter ones. So essentially, the solvent breaks down the pigment of the pencils and spreads them across the paper. So immediately you can tell the layers have merged together seamlessly. At the same time, less of the grain of the paper is visible. This makes the drawing appear more like a painting, and that's one of the reasons I really like using this method of blending. After blending, the next thing is to go in with the colored pencils again to redefine certain areas. So here, all you have to do is to look at your drawing and redefine those areas that require some adjustments. The paper choice for your drawing is also very crucial. I always prefer paper that has some amount of texture. This is because the solvent method for blending works best on such papers. If your paper is too smooth, the solvent will just glide right off the paper and it will just not work. I usually use the Strathmore Bristol Vellum surface paper, and I prefer the 500 and 300 series. So the next step is to blend again. Usually I do 2 sessions of blending before going in one last time with the colored pencils. I do this because the more layering and blending you do, the more depth you create, and therefore the more realistic your drawings will look. However, you also don't have to overdo it. There's only so many layers paper can take. So for the last time, I go in with the colored pencils, and this time I'm concerned about details. So this is where I draw in the highlights with a white colored pencil. I also dip in the shadows at this stage and draw all sorts of details like texture. Always reserve details for last. Don't forget, detailing is actually a form of layering. It's actually the last layer you apply to a drawing. However, you can still go back and make a few adjustments if you think there are certain areas that require corrections. Colored pencil is actually a very forgiving medium. It however doesn't get credit for this because most people think the fact that you cannot erase like you can with regular pencil makes it difficult, when in fact it really isn't. If you want to learn more, I've created a free resource called The Basics of Realistic Colored Pencil Art. It goes through all the basics you need to know about colored pencil art. It even contains some video links for you to watch and understand the concept better. The link will be in the description. I really recommend it. I think it will help you a lot. However, if you're interested in realistic portrait drawing with colored pencils, I've got another resource for you. It's called Mastering Realistic Portraits with Colored Pencils, also containing video links under each section for a more comprehensive learning experience. It teaches you everything you need to know about realistic portrait drawing with colored pencils from start to finish. So whether you're a beginner or an intermediate learner, this will be the perfect resource for you. If you're interested, it will be the second link in the description. Don't forget to subscribe for more tips and tutorials, and I'll see you in the next one.